let's get started. So for TinkerCAD, this is a free website for you to make an account and actually work in a 3D space and create your own 3D designs as we have here. So in order to get started making a design, we need to make an account. So we're going to hit join now over here. We're going to create a personal account, sign up with an email, and we want to also make sure when we're making an account, we want to set that we're going to be an adult account, as if you make a child account, it's going to take about 3 to 4 days for them to verify. So we're just going to put in a random day here for this. This was not going to be anything saved. We're going to use type in a password, then hit I agree, and then create the account. But since we already have an account here, luckily, I'm going to just sign in. All right. And when you have logged in, you're going to see a page here that has all these different designs, at least for me. Yours will be blank. We have 3D design, circuits, all this great stuff. But for us today, we're just going to create a new design to get started. One thing to note too, actually we're going to go back here real quick, is from this area, you can actually import all the other designs that other people have made, and you can actually work with them and edit them to your leisure as well. So we're going to create a new design here. Now, before we get into any of the details here of what our user interface is, we want to change our grid for our work plane to work with the size that the actual 3D printer at our building at the Harrington Library, as well as the Parr and Davis libraries is. So our printers can print about 8 3/4 inch cubed. So, you know, height, width, and length. So we want to edit our grid to make sure that it fits that property. Now you can do this in millimeters, inches, or in bricks. We usually can do inches. So we're going to set it to 8.75. Notice you'll know that nothing changed because, in fact, actually the 8.75 is equal to about the same amount as the default. So not much to worry about there.
Hey, Matthew, we do have a question.
Sure.
Would you be able to log out real quick and show the patrons how to log in or create an account real quick?
Of course.
Thank you.
So we're going to sign out here. So how to sign in if they already have the account?
Maybe just do both again, the join now and then how to sign in.
Sure. So we want to make our own personal account here because none of us here are going to be doing for a class or for education or anything like that. And we're going to make sign up with an email. It does ask for you to put a date of birth as well as what region you're going to be in. Again, as I said earlier, we want to make an adult account just so that we can have instant access to being able to tinker with things. So I'm just going to throw in some numbers here. Just make sure that if it's the parent doing it, they put in their correct birthday, things like that. And this is where you're going to put in your email and password, and then agree to the terms of service, and you're going to create an account from here. But if you already have an account, you can actually just sign in like normal. So it'll ask you to put in your email. So for me, it's PPLS. Give them the password, sign in or hit enter, and then it'll bring us to our design sheet. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. I will let you know otherwise. And we
Sure.
have an additional question that maybe you could get to maybe after the lesson is done at the end or whenever you're most comfortable. Patron
Sure.
asked, you mentioned that we could import other people's projects. Do you know how the patrons could do that? So if you want,
Yes, actually, I can do.
at any point.
We can do that right now if we'd like.
Perfect.
So when you go to the gallery, you will see that a lot of people have made wonderful designs here. And what you can do, let's see, I'll grab this Cobra to it looks cool. So let's see here. It really works. I don't think this one is the right one. Here we go. One sec here. Usually when you download anything for them, you want to download it as an STL so that you can mess with it, or download it as an OBJ. Let's see here. Let me exit this out here. Come on. Let's go back to our page here. Design. And then see up in the top right, top left corner here, we have the import feature, which allows us to import 3D files. So we're going to click choose a file. Downloads here since we just downloaded this. Much too complex. Oh, dang. Let's go find something a little simpler then. Let's head back there. I figured it would be something pretty simple, but I guess not. Let's grab this one since this one is a bit smaller. Luckily, this one already has the ability to copy and tinker it. Notice that the other one did not have, let's go back here, and you see how it says no derivative works. That's because it means that you can't just immediately tinker this. You'd have to download it from here to your computer, then go into a new file and import it manually. But from here, you can actually just copy and tinker this. Give it 1 sec here. And good night. Okay, there we go. It's giving it a sec to figure out what it's trying to do there. And now we can actually just immediately start editing what this is, which is cool. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. I will let you know otherwise.
All right. Yet, what we're going to do is we're going to get out of here. So let's get back. Go to our home. So back in our first open window that we made, you'll note that at the very top, it has decided to give it a very silly name. We don't have to keep this name. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to name this class project for today. And over here in this corner here as well, this is basically going to be where we're going to be working with the most. Whereas you can see here, we have this little cube up in the top, and how if you right click and hold it down, it kind of moves it around so that you can see your 3D object from multiple angles. Using the scroll wheel or the plus sign here or the minus sign here helps you zoom in and out so you have a better view of what you're looking at and what you're working on. And if you ever find yourself getting into a spot where it's very confusing and you don't know where you're at, luckily there is a lovely home view that brings it right back to where the front is here. Also, we do have a switch view here. This basically switches from the what is called the orthographic view, which is basically if you're viewing things in a 3D space to viewing it to a flat space, which again, we can always go right back to home if that's just not how we want to work. But definitely going to be very helpful to use these tools here to help keeping you visualize what you're working with. Now, before we get too far in to making any designs or things like that, one of the things we need to think about is that when we're 3D printing something, most things need a large base. So I'm going to grab a little cube here in order to be steady as it prints. Or we have to make something that is called a support system, which is, so let's say we decide that we want to, let's grab this cone here. We're going to say we want to print this. Note how it's got very little base structure here to go off of. So when it prints, it's going to need something to hold it there and hold it steady so that it doesn't fall over mid printing. So when you're printing or making designs and things like that, you want to think about the best way so that when it prints, you don't have to have so many support systems, that it will just print naturally and have as few problems as possible going forward and printing. So instead of printing something like this, that's, has no wide base, has to have a lot of supports, I usually recommend that you print something closer to this, where there's a lot of flat surface on the bottom here for it to work with. So those.
Matthew, we have a question.
Sure.
How did you spin or rotate that object? Is that something you're going to get to as the class goes on, or would you be able to show us now?
That is something I am going to get to as the class
Okay.
goes on. I just wanted to make sure you all understood the concept of having a good base for your structure whenever you're designing a 3D an object for 3D printing.
Okay.
One thing also, if you want to think about it as well, the soldier toys or like D&D figures, they all have a very flat base underneath the legs so that they stand up properly. That's something as well that goes into the structure of making good 3D printing models. Okay. So we're going to start with editing basic shapes. So as we talked about in that question earlier about what is all of this here. So when you select your tool, you'll see that it has a lot of different points, arrows, a lot of doodads that may seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but they're all fairly simple. If you see these little white blocks here, this messes with the shape on our X and our X axis here. X and Z, I guess, would be making it thicker, longer, wider, all that stuff there. And then if we want it to retain its shape, while holding down the Shift key, we're going to click on it again and note that it stays within the same shape. It doesn't full on go all around. It retains whatever it was originally designed to look like. And if you grab the black dots here, it only moves it on the one plane of axis. Whereas this one does it in all directions. This one only goes in the one direction. Good to know if you're just trying to slightly adjust smaller things here and there. So we're going to go back to our original shape here. If you'll note here, I've been going backwards. If you see up in the top left corner here, right next to the little trash can, there are some arrows. These are your undo and your redo. So if you ever make a mistake, you can always go up here and click undo. But there's also a little hotkey for it when you hold down Control and hit Z. Control Z is your best friend whenever working in any sort of digital environment, especially with 3D modeling, because if you ever make a mistake, you can just hit Control Z and go, oh, thank gosh, I don't have to worry about getting it right back to where it was beforehand. I already know what it looks like. All right. So that helps with the overall messing with the shape of the object. Now, if you want to move the object, you can just click on it, move it around this way, and it'll keep it on the same plane, but in a different spot. But if you want to move it up on the Z-axis, or you want it to go, we'll grab this little arrow here. And now you can see that it's about, 23 millimeters off the ground here. You can also go underneath as well. I don't recommend going underneath. It's not going to print there. I recommend you always want to work at the 0 and then work your way up. Now, I did just explain a lot. Is there any questions on that?
If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Let me see if we have anything. Let's see. What can TinkerCAD and other 3D modeling programs be used for? Do you have any ideas, Matthew?
Yes. So while this program particularly is meant for designing for 3D printing, 3D modeling programs are also used in things like video games, CG animation, as well as special effects in terms of how they animate and design the models that are in those media as well. So if you wanted to take a video game character, for instance, and you needed to have a model for them, you would use a program similar to TinkerCAD called ZBrush that lets you sculpt using shapes and things like that and being able to edit them in order to get the design that you want. Does that answer the question?
So far, so good. I'll let you know if they say otherwise. And we have another question for you.
Sure.
Do the measurements show by default?
Let me, I guess, when you say the measurements, are you talking about like how it, when I have it clicked on here and it shows you when you click, hover over the little dots here, that it shows you what these are? Is that what we're asking about?
I'm assuming yes. The patron responded yes.
Okay, yes. So when you click on it, it'll show you what the measurements are, and you can actually, this is another thing you can do if you would like. So you click on this, you can actually double click on that, and you can type in the, if you already like know the exact size it needs to be, you can type it in and then it'll make it that length, which is really cool. We're actually going to get to some of that too. It's actually literally helpful. So we're going to see that when we get to the rotation feature, because it's the same thing as well. You can actually type in the degrees. So if you wanted to type in, it does a 180 degree, it'll turn it about 180 degrees, but that probably doesn't look as interesting because it's a square. So we're going to grab a weird object here. Oop. Gosh, it's one of these things. All right. Yeah. That one's a bit more complicated. I should have grabbed something else, but as you see here, now it's completely done a 180. But we're gonna go zoom back out here just a sec. But yeah, you can also, if you're trying to adjust the angle, as you see here, there's two wheels. There is this inner wheel that rotates it at a very sharp, set number of angles. So, it makes it easier if you want to go specifically to 90, 180, 45, things like that. And then there's a bit more of a loose kind of like going based on your eyeball, whatever feel you have for it, that sort of thing. And it does it on both axes as well. So if you wanted to change it, so it's kind of facing upright like that. So need to move this up a bit because, as I said, I like to work from 0. just a good habit to be in. And there. Voila.
Wonderful. Would you be able to show us real quick how to put that blue object on top of that red square?
Of course.
Perfect.
So one of the things to note here, as we talked about, as you mentioned, that height is set to 20. So what we can do here is when we hit the arrow up, we can note that it's going to be at 20. Again, you can just type this in or just move it up yourself. And then just click with the left click and then drag it on over. And now, as you can see, it's on top of it. And it's exactly on top of it because, as you can see, we said that this is set to 20 for the height, and this for the y-axis, it's set to 20 as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew.
No problem. Now, as you can see here, though, that I've moved it over here, and it's a little bit off center, if you will notice. So what we can do here is, if you will look up in the top right corner here, we have a variety of different tools here that are grayed out because we don't have this selected. So when we have them both selected, you can see the mirror tool and the align tool. So when we have it aligned, you'll have all these different dots come up. So let's see if we click one here, what happens. Now you can see that this part has aligned it so that this matches this is so that this item's middle point is now aligned with this item's middle point as well. Now this takes a little bit of playing with to try to get it just right. But as you can see here, by clicking the dots, we can have things like this happen, where now it's entirely inside the object. But luckily we have our little Command Z or Control Z, our undo button, and then we can get that there. And now, as you can see, I think it's pretty nicely aligned in a way that I like it and find pleasing to look at. So I'm going to leave it as is. Was there any questions about the align tool that I can go over and show you other things with?
Would you be able to run through that align tool again, especially focusing on the little dots that appear and what those mean?
Sure. So each dot is basically going to be what part of our object is going to align with what. So as you can see here, also gives you a little preview image. That's going to happen. As I said, I don't want that, so I'm going to hit Command Z. I do want, yeah, actually, maybe that would be a little bit better. As you can see, with each little thing, it shows you where it's going to end up and what it's trying to align with.
Matthew, just to be clear, in order to get that alignment tool to be active, you selected both objects. And
that's correct, yes.
Okay. So you highlighted both objects and then you went to that upper right area and that little tiny 2-bar symbol up there, that's the align tool? That
is the align tool, yes. It's right next to the mirror tool, which we'll get to at some point, but I also want to focus again on how to combine these images here in just a second.
Okay, perfect. I'll let you know if there are any questions about how to hold that up.
So when you're working and constructing in TinkerCAD, sometimes you have this problem of you want to click both objects, so you want to move them both around at the same time, but accidentally you only click one of them, and then you accidentally now have it off to the side and the other piece has been left behind. One of the ways you can get past that problem is by combining the two objects. And what you can do to do that is we're going to left click drag to select both of them. And then we're going to hit up here. We have these two tools here. One that's not active just yet. We'll get to that one. We have this one here. And if you hover over it, you'll see that it's titled group. What group does is it makes it that the two objects that you have selected or more become the same object. So now if we click on it with just a click, it's now one object altogether, and it moves just as so. Now, if you find yourself, you're working with a lot of different objects, things like that, and you wanted to only pair two of them together, but you accidentally pair the wrong two together, like, oops, I didn't want these two to be together. What we can do is we'll click on it. And now that you'll notice that this has now become active, this is our ungroup feature. So I don't want these two to be together anymore. So I'm gonna hit ungroup. And now you can see that they're back to being two separate objects that I need to shift, click and drag to be able to get both of them. This is actually really helpful in working with large complex pieces to have them grouped together, so you can, click, drag, push things out of the way that need to be out of the way, or combine pieces that need to be combined, so that it's just easier for you to understand what it is you're working with. Now, I'm going to do something a little difficult here, so we're going to ungroup these two. Let's move this guy off to the side here. So I'll make this guy just a little bit bigger for this, so you guys can have an understanding of what's going on. As you can see here, underneath our shape here, we have solid and hole. Part of the grouping feature is cool is that you can actually make holes, divots, little designs, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a pretty simple shape here. Let's grab a cylinder. We're going to make this cube here have a hole in it. So again, checking the height on this one. It's up to 63. So we want to make this guy up to about 63 as well. Move them on top. And what we're going to do is grab our little vertical tool here. And we're going to actually go down inside. I'm also going to make this a little bit bigger because that way you have a really good idea of what you're seeing here. There. Now we're going to select both of them. Well, before that, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to see how we have this as a solid object. We're going to first switch it to a hole. And as you can see here, it's now become semi-translucent, almost a little bit see-through. That's because it's trying to tell us that it is a hole as opposed to being a solid object. Now, in order for it to register that it is a full hole in the system, in the picture, in the piece, we're going to click and drag, make sure to select both of them, and then we're going to hit group. Now, as you can see here, there's now a hole inside our little box here, which is pretty cool. Again, if you find that this is not looking just right for you, what you can do is we'll ungroup them, and we're going to hit the align tool again. This time I want to make sure that this is a bit more centered. So this now centers it along this axis, and we'll center it this way as well. Now it's in the center of our piece, and then we're going to group them. Now we have a cool box that has a hole right in the center for us. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Matthew.
Oh, I was about to ask.
Yeah. Is it possible to put multiple holes in one object?
Yes, you can put as many holes in an object as you can. Again, I would recommend not doing too many because especially if you're putting holes, like let's say we wanted to put a hole on the side here, just because of the fact that when 3D printing happens, it is a plastic polymer that just goes up like so. So it has to put supports and holes on the side. So you can make a lot of holes if you want to. Just always be aware of the structural integrity of your object that you're making, because it might not print if there's just too many holes in it. But yes, you can put as many holes in something as you want. In fact, let's go put another hole in here. Let's make this kind of a weird angle here. I'm on you. We're gonna make this bigger again. Click both of them, and we're gonna group it all together. And now we have a hole down here too. See? Zoom in on it too, as you can see. It also, since it noticed the other hole here as well, it was kind of cut a little weird. And if you like that, go for it, keep it that way. But I don't personally like that, so I'm gonna try and fix that. So we're gonna ungroup that one. Okay, just move it out a bit. Group. Looks a little bit better. It's kind of cool, actually. I like this a lot. But does that answer the question that you can have multiple holes in there?
I believe so. I will let you know if I hear otherwise.
Sure. Also, as you can see here, I've gotten a little crazy on that. So I'm gonna hit the home button. So lastly, what we're gonna do is we're going to delete this. And we're gonna make a simple object. It's we're gonna make a little bookmark to start off. So what I wanna do is, since bookmarks are, fairly long, fairly thin, we're gonna take our, so I should probably just get rid of that real quick. We're gonna take our little box here and make it just like this, fairly long, fairly thin. We're gonna add some text to it. So as you see here, off to the right-hand side, there's a lot of different cool and interesting objects you can work with, one of them being text. Text you also can change here. We have the text feature, which you can change it. I'm going to change mine right now to my name because I want this bookmark to have my name on it. Let's do all capitals. I'm excited about this. Also, they do have different fonts you can work with. I personally am a bit more of a fan of the sans font, so we're going to use that one. As you notice here, you can mess with height, bevel, and segments. These ones aren't as important. As you can see, if you mess with the slider, it doesn't really do much on all of them. Personally, whenever I'm working with text, I like to leave it alone with the bevel and the segments, just because it makes it harder to print sometimes. But let's see here. We're going to move it over here. I'm also going to lift it up a bit. I say that. Let's make it a little bigger. I want it to actually kind of fit our frame here. That looks nice, but it's a little off center. So we're going to do this again. We're going to hit the align tool, hit the middle on both of these so that it aligns to be in the middle on all sides. Yeah, that looks nice. I'm going to lift this up just a smidge because I think it'd be cooler to have it up a bit higher. That's a bit too high. There we go. Yeah, that looks nice. Now, if you want to, you can either do a bevel, but since it's a bookmark, I think it would be better if we kept this flat. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make the letters here into a hole and then group them together like we did before. As you can see now, it's kind of cool. I have a little bookmark with my name on it that I can actually go and 3D print. Now, I talked about this earlier too, but notice how I put the bookmark flat like this. This makes it a lot easier for the 3D printer to print as opposed to it being let's see here. We want to do it as opposed to being like this, because as you can see, there's barely any surface here for it to be supported while it's printing. So it's probably going to fall over if we're not careful. So there we go. Seems that we had a bit of a, probably just be easier. There we go. Let's go backwards a bit and then put it loud and flat. Yeah, and this is something simple you can make and actually print here at the library. I find this thing to be a pretty good beginner tool to do because it introduces you to being able to make, holes, make a little cool small object that's easy to make. But I think if y'all are ready, we can go on to making something a bit more interesting, at least in my opinion. And we also get to work with all these cool different shapes that we have here.
We have some questions before we move on to that next aspect, if you're down.
Of course.
Would you be able to show a patron how to make maybe the first two letters of your name indented and the last two letters sticking out?
Sure. So that'll be a little bit difficult. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ungroup this. I'm going to grab my text here. I'm just going to have the MA here because we're going to have to actually do that as two separate little bits of text here. In fact, I'm going to leave this one having the different font just for emphasis. Let's see here. I'm gonna move these off to the side here. These two here. We're also gonna try to match them in terms of size to our first pair, but it's not super important for this, but it'll bother me if they're not fully at the same size. So we're gonna do the best we can here. Move that up a bit. But you do have to do it as separate objects just because of the fact with text, you can't do one letter one way, another letter the other way without it being an individual objects for the file to recognize it. So I'm also gonna align these just a little bit better. Let's see what we can do here. Oh, that is not what I wanted. Let's actually do it this way. Also, you don't always have to click and drag. You can click one, hold down Shift, click the other. And what we're going to do here is try to see if this depth of. Okay, there we go. I think that looks good to me. But so select all, group it together, and now you have two letters that are indented and two letters that are beveled.
Wonderful. I will let you know if they have any follow-up questions.
Sure. All right. So I'm going to delete this because I think now that you've seen a lot of the different basic things you can do, y'all are ready to do something a little bit more complicated. What I usually like to do for these sorts of programs is do what is called a pencil case. And you can grab any of these cool design shapes to work with. I prefer polygons. Now, let's see. As you see here, I put in this polygon shape here. As a rule of thumb, you can actually change the number of sides that this has. You can go from just 3 all the way up to 12. The reason it only goes up to 12 is just because after a certain amount of sides it has, it starts to become a cylinder. Because when 3D printing goes through, depending on the software you're working with, it only prints it as basically just multiple flat sides that kind of give the illusion of it being a cylinder. So that's why it only maxes out to 12. I like the number 8, so I'm going to go with an octagon here. Zoom out here just a bit. We're going to make it a little bit bigger than this. Yeah, there we go. I think that's a good size for my little pencil holder we're going to make. Maybe just a bit wider. Let's go. Yeah, there we go. All right. And most pencil holders have a hole in them. And as you see here, we have the cylinder tool, but right above it, there's the basic shape for a cylinder that's already a hole. So this way we don't actually have to go in and change it to a hole from here. We already just have it set up as a hole automatically. I'll lift it up here so we have a good starting point. Yeah, there we go. And I want to bring it down. Grab from here and the little white dot, go down as far as we can. That's a bit too low. So we're going to use this arrow here to move it up. So now it's about 6 units off the ground there. That should be fine. I want to hold down shift because I want it to stay a circle. Kind of go. There we go. But as we saw here, it is still not aligned the right way. So I'm going to go back to our align tool here. Try to align it so that it is center with the middle of the octagon. And while it's nice, it's still not big enough for me. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. But yep, every time you resize it, you're going to note that it's going to mess up the alignment just a bit. So each time you do that, go back and hit both the middle ones so it aligns with the middle. And then once we got it to where we like, we can group it together and voila, we have the start of a pencil case. Now from here, it's basically up to your personal preference. You can start adding things like text. You can add your name on it. So we can do text again. You can add cool designs like these stars, or maybe this other star here. This is a bit easier to work with too. It's basically at this point, it's kind of up to you and you get to play around with whatever you pick. So while I'm, I guess, messing with this, if you all have any other questions, feel free to let me know and I can work on this pencil holder and show you how to add these things in that you have questions about.
I actually have a question from earlier that I'm saving for towards the end of the class. Would you be able to kind of show how you would add a window or a door to an object such as a house or whatever object you feel like you can add that to?
Door or a window? Yeah, we can do that. Grab a box for this. I'm going to make this pretty large just so we can have a pretty good idea of what we're doing here. Let's not use a star. I don't think we want a star shape. Actually, I kind of want a star shaped window, but we're going to get back to that then. So for a regular window, what I would do is it kind of depends on what type of window we're going to do. I would like to do a 4-pane window, if that's okay. It might be a bit complicated, but we're going to work with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab 4 boxes here. Put that back there. So this is set to 20 again. So we're going to go up. Let's do about 25 at the height should be good. Move it over top. Same with this other one here. Move it over top. Take a look here. So you can see that these are not all aligned very well. So we're gonna click, shift click. Because as you saw when I tried to drag over it, it tried to select that box back there. I'm gonna align these a little bit better. There we go. So do the same for these two. And then after these are aligned, grab both of them. There we go. Now you can see how they're all lined up nice and neat. So I'm going to grab all four of them again, and I want to turn them into holes here. And we're going to lift them up a bit, just since this is a window. We're going to put it onto the side here. Just like so. And then we're going to group them together, just like we did before. As you can see, kind of looks like a 4-pane window on a little house.
Wonderful. I'll let you know if that patron has a follow-up question. In the meantime, which libraries have a 3D printer and how much does it cost?
So PAR Library, as well as Harrington Library and Davis Library, all have access to the 3D printer. If you have something you want to print, you just need to bring in a USB flash drive that has an STL file, which we'll get to here in just a sec about what the difference between the STL file and the OBJ file is. But it costs 20 cents per gram. So whenever we print something, these things are all 3D objects, so they have a weight to it. So once it's printed, we'll weigh it and we'll charge 20 cents per the gram that it weighs.
Alrighty, I have another question for
Sure.
you. Is it possible to create a curved pipe or elbow within TinkerCAD?
Yes. So there's a few ways you can go about doing that. Let me delete all of these things here. Now you saw earlier we have this scribble tool. You can use this to make curves, but since we're trying to make a pipe, if that is correct, it's a pipe, not like an arm or anything like that, right?
I'm assuming so. I'll let you know if they say otherwise.
Sure. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab some cylinders here. And we're going to put them on their side here. Come on. Yeah. Angles. Sometimes just going backwards be a lot easier. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move these here so that we can get the start of our little kind of L bracket. Now I think about it too, we do have this as well. Because it kind of also depends. You can kind of just grab these both here, and it's kind of hard to make it line up a bit. So now this is also, I want to point out that this is how I would do it. There are many ways you can mess with these things, but let's see here. But so what I do here is, this is when I'll grab a hole, move it up a bit. Together. And as you can see, it's starting to cut it apart. Still want to move this a bit over this one. Maybe even make it a little bit bigger. But a lot of cutting things apart is basically just adding in holes to the thing and grouping them together. Should grab that. And then there. As you can see, I'm gonna need to kind of move some of these other pieces here, make them a bit bigger, just so that they're not fully doing that. It's a bit of a hassle, but as you can see, the basic idea of it is you're going to now need to spend a bit of time trying to make it so that everything matches. But again, just continuously adding cuts and things like that to your piece like this, you'll eventually get to where you need it to be. As you can see here, I actually missed a little piece here. So see.
Wonderful. What happens if you try to, I think, group a hole and a hole together? Do they just kind of cancel each other out?
Yes, they just kind of cancel each other out.
Okay.
There we go. But yes, as you can see, it's going to take a little bit of time for me to get this just right. That's why. Most 3D printing, especially when you 3D designing, sorry, whenever you get into the more complex designs and curves and shapes, sometimes it's just, you know, going to take a while to get to places and things like that. Did not mean to grab that, to get to where you want it to look just right. But this is basically the start of it, and you just kind of now have to tinker with it to get it to everything lining up just so. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. I will let you know if they say otherwise. We do have about 5 minutes left in this class. If anyone has any questions, please type them in chat.
Well, while your guys are getting those questions, I'm going to show you how to save and export your file to be able to be printed at the Harrington or the Parr or Davis libraries. So let's say this is our object. We're ready to go. We are ecstatic to get it printed. So what we're going to do is up in the top right corner, you see export. And as I said before, we only accept STL files for our objects to be printed. So we're going to click STL, and it automatically downloads it to the downloads folder to be able to be printed, put onto a flash drive, and sent over here. It's very simple to save your work. And you can also, if you make any adjustments, just again, you're gonna have to hit export again, and it will save over the file. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I'd like to say thank you all for coming. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys learned something from this, and we'll be having more programs like this in the future. Always keep up to date by checking out the Plano Library website, as well as your local library. We have calendar printouts that you can always grab for the individual month, as well as our online calendar that we hand out.
Real quick, Matt.
Sure.
So can you save the project without exporting it and then return to it later? And if so, can you show us how to do that?
Let's see. What I understand, it should just save automatically to your whenever you make changes to it. So we're going to go back to our homepage here. Decides to load. Let's go back here. Yeah, see how it's automatically at the bottom there, saved your work. Yeah, it basically has an autosave feature for every time you leave it. So let's see here. I'm just going to go back to one of the other projects we have here. I'm going to ungroup this, and then I'm going to head back here, and it automatically saves. And it also goes back and shows you this is the most recent one you've worked on. Basically, that's how it's arranged, which is nice. At least for me, I prefer to work in a place where it's like, oh, this is the most recent thing I worked on. So here it is.
Awesome. I think that answers all the questions we have. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right. No problem.